All right, today is January 19, 2018. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes CSI implementation group. First on the agenda, I wanted to talk about the Monday meeting. I'm not going to be able to attend on Monday. So we have a couple of options. One is cancel and meet on Wednesday. Two is somebody else leads this meeting. What do you guys prefer?
I'll lead it.
Okay, cool.
I just won't be able to record it.
Unless that should be fine. Okay, so next on the agenda is we have a new member who has volunteered to help us out with CSI. His name is Edison. He is based out of China, so he's unable to attend these meetings. Is there any work that we can assign him? We have a very long task list. So we don't have to do it immediately, but as we go through this meeting, maybe something to keep in the back of your mind if you're overloaded or don't think there's something that you can get to, maybe we can assign it to Edison.
Okay.
So
I know that for if they just want to just get started immediately, they can just go to CSI Sanity, and I already have a whole bunch of tasks. I just pick one. So
okay.
But if other than that, we can move away. So. Yeah, I can put the project page to grab and they can just grab any task out there.
Okay.
Just to get started, but then we can look for something more meaty.
All right. And then I added this section, PRs to discuss or that need attention here. This is something that we do in the storage SIG. I think it would be useful here. If there's any PRs that you think need attention, we'll move this up every time, and you can just add it there. It looks like nobody added anything for this meeting. For bugs that we're currently tracking, there's two bugs. One is the Docker file and root.
Actually, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there was I had updated the doc earlier today with status of a PR for the authorizer, but I think it got copied.
I actually moved that down. I moved it into the actual because it was one of the tasks that we're tracking and not really a bug. Can you see the screen?
Actually, let me switch to your screen. But so the update there is, I'm looking at the wrong thing. The update there is that PR got merged, the authorizer PR. So it turned out that not Jonathan.
Jordan did all the work.
Jordan, yeah, he did all the work. Basically, what it ended up being is a controller that you had to implement that does the authorizer. So he did that. And he merged it, or somebody merged it. Got merged, I should say.
Perfect.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm gonna, because it's merged, I'm just gonna go ahead and do a quick sanity check to make sure that everything works okay.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. One thing that I did was I added another item underneath this item, which is identical except for beta. I want to make sure that we don't lose track of that.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, my phone started to ring. Can you repeat that?
I said that in our task list, I duplicated this item, created one item for alpha, which is the one that just got merged, and one for beta. This is simply so that we don't lose track of it as we
I see.
Beta API.
Okay, when we actually upgrade to the beta label.
Yeah, so we're going to have to move the volume attachment into V1 Beta 1, and it's going to exist in two different groups. It'll exist in V1 Alpha 1 as it does today, which the current iteration of this authorizer code does all the things that it needs to do against. But when we add the V1 Beta 1 version of volume attachment, initially it's not going to have any of this authorizer.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it'll fail. Okay.
So we'll just need to make sure that we go in and update this PR with
Okay.
beta 2 as well.
So what I'll do is after I do a sanity check on the code to make sure that it actually still works and nothing is broken, I'll come back to that beta to move everything to the
Okay.
beta.
So the dependency there is for the volume attachment API to beta work to get done. Nick is working on this. I don't know what the current status of that is, but as soon as we get that merged, then you should be able to proceed with this.
Okay, yeah, because in his code, he's actually using a version informer,
Okay.
which actually is using the name alpha 1,
Okay.
v1 alpha 1. So that will have to change as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll keep that in mind, and then we'll come back to it.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. So going back to the bugs, we have the Docker file in root needs to be deleted. I don't think there's any progress made there.
If you want, I can just take care of that today.
Sure, up to you, your call. I don't know if it's a super high priority yet, but up to you.
No, it's super easy.
Second item here is versioning message incorrectly prints value. Looks like Luis sent out a PR for this. I have LGTM did, I believe, and it's just awaiting merge. So that should be resolved by the next meeting. And then in terms of task updates, we can go through the list real quick.
One second before we move on to the task update.
Please.
There was another PR that I think was waiting for attention, which was the PR for the switching out using the watcher. I'm not sure.
So I actually moved that into the task list as well because that was just an item we should be working on.
Okay.
So we can jump to that item real quick. So the task is changing volume attachment polling from polling to watching. And the PR for that got sent out. I took a look at it. I have one concern about the way that it is currently handling setting up the watch for checking if the object is deleted. I talked to LavaLamp about this, and he has some suggestions on it. I'm not an expert in this area, so I added Chow to take a look at it as well. I pinged him to review this, and hopefully we can get some more traction on it. I just want to make sure that the way that watch is set up, monitor deletes, actually works the way that we think it works.
Okay, yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, good progress.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Cool. So for the zero tasks, moving mount propagation to beta, Jan popped into the storage SIG meeting yesterday, and he asked folks for help in testing this more broadly to make sure that we're comfortable moving this forward. I think that's still outstanding. We really need this to move to beta. There was some confusion about whether it's already at beta or not. And to be clear, we don't want to just move it to beta. We want it to be on by default rather than opt-in. So let's keep an eye on that. Second item is moving the volume attachment API to beta. Nick Wren is still working on that. I am not sure what the status update is. I'll ping him on Slack to check. Third item is moving the CSI volume source API to beta, which as far as we think is mostly just verification work. Vlad, any updates on that?
Nothing right now, but I will. I think I'll reach out to you just to get clarification because you mentioned that there's really no move that needs to happen. It's just
we need to make sure that we just need to go in and check and make sure there's nothing we need to do. Okay, cool. Next part of that is updating the flags accordingly. I think we should do that after the volume attachment APIs go to beta, but we can probably do it in parallel for the CSI volume source flags. That might actually be the only piece of work that needs to be done for the CSI volume source. So that needs to be done. Make volume attributes first class. Is Felipe on the line today? Okay, we will follow up with him offline. Next up is enabling end-to-end tests. I believe there was the PR that Luis sent out last quarter for CSI tests. It got merged. Luis, I think the next steps here are to enable it. And is that still in progress, or?
Yeah, that's something I'm going to get to. Just
Okay.
quick question. If the objects are going to go to beta, do we need to do this work?
Yes, because alpha and beta are going to coexist.
Okay, that's cool.
So in fact, we'll need to add more tests for beta
Okay.
that are essentially duplicates and making sure that we test both alpha and beta. So we should track that as another item.
All right. I have to figure out how the beta ones will be different.
Yeah. I think mostly it'll be just copy and paste, except in the API object, if you look at the top of the YAML, it says what version of the object it is. And instead of being v1 alpha 1, it'll be v1 beta 1. So
all right, I'll just
for all intents and purposes, it'll be identical except for that.
Yeah, okay, I got it then.
Cool. So next up is node authorizer limit volume attachment access. So as Vlad said, this PR has been merged. The only thing that's remaining here is verification, which he's currently working on. Next item is the same thing except doing it for beta. We have a dependency on getting the beta API in, so can't make progress on that yet. Next is the CSI credentials work, which Sergey is working on. He sent out an update to the CSI spec. I took a look at it. I have some feedback on that. And I believe Sergey also shared a doc with me that I need to take a look at. Sergey, is there anything else that you want to add if you're on the line?
Yeah, that's right. So there was a doc with a proposal to add an attribute to the storage class, basically to have a first class citizen attribute, which would contain probably the map of secrets, which then can be parsed or fetched by the external provisioner. And in this case, the external provisioner will become completely backend independent. So it doesn't matter whether the keys are for Ceph or for iSCSI or for whatever. As long as they're stored in a secret, then they're going to be copied into the map of the user credentials, which is the one of the parameters of the CSI call. There was multiple, there are some folks who is participating in the discussion, and I got it working. So I have an example of the extending of the types, and then code for the external provisioner, which basically uses this new type, new attribute, and get the credential. But I guess we need to some sort of come to the agreement on that attribute, the actual attribute. So lots of discussions.
Yeah, this is going to be a big project. So, okay, sounds good. Next item is registration of sockets for with kubelet device plugin mechanism. Chakri is been assigned this issue, which has the context and a preliminary design doc. I think this is a very important item to make sure we get in on time for this quarter. Shilpa, are you covering for Chakri today?
Actually, I don't have an update on this yet. I'll sync up with him and I'll probably.
Okay, cool. Next item is FSType, which Nick Wren sent out a PR. It's been merged. It's been approved. So yay, that's green. Next P1 item is improve CSI version handling in Kubernetes plus tests. Mm-hmm. So one thing I want to add here is that it looks like CSI 0.2 is going to have breaking changes. We're going to need to figure out how we're going to handle that in the Kubernetes side of things. My feeling is that what we're going to do is just move to 0.2 and abandon 0.1. The question is going to be about when we're going to do that. It depends on when the Kubernetes or when the CSI release is going to be cut. So we need to keep that in mind as we do this work and as we move forward.
I did not know that. Is it possible to get maybe a link here right under that? What is this going to break?
Yeah.
Or a PR
I think there's
or
going to be more discussion of this in the next CSI community meeting.
yeah. Is there emails or something going around for that or?
Not yet. It's just a couple of items that we're talking about changing names. We had an approvers meeting yesterday, and there were a couple of things where we were considering changing types and names. So, for example, I spoke with the gRPC folks, and their recommendation is not to use unsigned integers in our protobufs because unsigned integers do not translate properly in all languages. For example, Java doesn't have unsigned integers, and so their recommendation was to have the protos use just integers. So that's a breaking change we're going to have to make. Another thing was relatively small, but changing, I think it was like get node ID from capital ID to capital I small d, because that's the correct gRPC way of doing it.
That
one's not huge. That one's kind of silly, but
I wouldn't break the API for that. That's what I'm saying.
But there are going to be API breaking changes, though that's just two small examples. So what that means is that for us, from the Kubernetes side of things, we will have to abandon support for 0.1 at some point and move over to 0.2. And we need to make sure we handle that gracefully.
Saad, do you think the changes for the credentials will, the name of the variables will make into the 0 to 0?
Yes, it is. It's marked for the 0.2 milestone. So credentials should be part of that, and credentials are also changing the variable names. So that is also going to be a breaking change. But we don't currently have a dependency on credentials. We don't pass in credentials, so that's not as big an issue.
Well, in the provisioner and in the attacher, there are kind of a placeholders in the struct that uses user credentials. So we'll have to adjust that.
Yeah.
It looks.
I wonder if, like, what I would really like to see happen is that when we ship 1.10 of Kubernetes, it ships with 0.2. But that will require the CSI 0.2 release to happen before the code freeze for Kubernetes, which is going to be like end of February. And I'm not sure if the schedules there will align.
I think suggesting is that I think we should go with our plan, which was to match the first two numbers of the version, not the last one, for CSI. And second is to forget 0.1 and make sure that we are 0.2 compatible, because by the time we finish and we release, the drivers will be 0.2. Yeah. And then we should always be at the x.x value of CSI. That's my suggestion. Because if not, we're going to have all these gRPC APIs for if this, if that one, and it's going to make it very, very difficult.
I agree. So to get around the concern of CSI shipping around the same time as Kubernetes, what we could do is what we did last quarter, which was snap to head of CSI. And then shortly after the 0.2 release is picked up, we pick up the 0.2 release, and the delta ends up being like a few comments. So that's an option.
I think we have to.
Is that change already in there in head for the breaking changes?
I
The
don't think
breaking
so.
changes have not been merged yet. They're coming down the pipeline as far as I can tell.
That's going to require a update, a task for updating to 0.2 because our APIs have to change.
Yeah. So all of our APIs will need to make sure we're compatible with 0.2.
And we're not going to do any signature changes, just data type changes, right?
It depends on what these changes end up being in 0.2. We'll have to look at them from a case-to-case basis and make sure that everything is in alignment.
Yeah, I am expecting that the changes will be not trivial.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this is the challenge of working with two completely independent code bases and having independent releases. The beauty of CSI, especially now that it's pre 1.0 and we can still have breaking changes go into the API. Hopefully after 0.2, it'll be more or less stable and it can be backwards compatible, but we'll see. Okay, next item on that we're tracking is internal components. Kubelet should probe prior to storage ops. I think this is also assigned to Felipe. We need to poke Felipe for status. Next up is change volume status from polling to watch. We discussed this earlier. It's currently in progress. There's some feedback that needs to be worked on. Deploying external components to GCR IO. David has been working on this, and for the most part, it is going to be handled externally within Google, so no need to worry about it. Topology, I have a to-do to...
Wait, hold on.
Yes.
Yeah. How do we get our Docker files in there? I mean, our Docker containers.
So initially what I was thinking was updating the make files to include a GCR IO push. Jan pointed out that not everyone has permissions to push to GCR IO. I think that's an issue that has been ongoing for a while, even on the Kubernetes side of things. And there is some work planned to allow people outside of Google to be able to push to this, to GCR IO. That hasn't gone in yet. So as a compromise, instead of putting this in, we are going to just do it internally. David's going to do it manually. So as far as we're concerned, we're going to push to Docker, and then David will sync to GCR IO.
Okay, but I'll prefer if that did not happen. I'll prefer if the community, that just like you guys take care of it. That's complicated. Is it possible instead of using, I mean, the whole point of getting away from Hub Docker is that Hub Docker is unreliable, right?
Yep.
So what I suggest instead is that we use Quay. And then to me, Quay is super fast and very reliable.
Okay.
And then we can just have a team again. And then everybody can use Quay and push to Quay.
So I would be totally okay with moving from Docker to Quay. I have no strong preference either way. As far as GKE is concerned, we can't use Docker or Quay. We have to use GCR IO for reliability reasons. So regardless of where it ends up being, whether it's Docker or Quay, we're going to have to sync to GCR IO if we ever have any GKE components that rely on this code.
But GKE, oh, you mean GKE driver?
GKE as in the GKE service, if it ever relies on any of these components, it can't pull from Quay or Docker, because if either of those services ever goes down, then...
But that's that's GKE's
yeah, exactly. So that's why
okay.
I'm okay just completely moving this item. We can change this if you'd like to move to Quay, if that's what folks want.
I just think that moving to Quay gives the community, us in the team, the ability to update it when we need to, so that everybody gets to change. If not, we will have to wait and we are out of control, in other words.
Yeah. Your call. If everybody else is okay with that, I'm okay with this.
I'm only saying from experience because while I was working in E2E, I needed to push things. So
Okay. How about let's discuss it at the next meeting? It looks like people are out on Friday. We can discuss it on Monday and see what people think. And if
but
everyone's
you're out on Monday. So next Wednesday.
right, let's do it on Wednesday.
Okay. I'll create it the thing, but not officially, just to get an example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. Topology is in the works. Block device support for CSI. We asked Erin about this. I think Luis asked about it yesterday at the storage SIG meeting. She said she will. It's on her to-do list for this quarter. I don't believe she's gotten to it yet, but once she's ready, she will reach out to Vlad for some guidance, and hopefully that gets started soon. We might need to poke them. Understand. Okay. Sorry, what was that?
I said, okay.
Okay, cool. So understanding how CSI currently handles ephemeral volumes, we don't have anybody looking at that yet. It's a P2. We'll get to it when we get to it. If CSI implements mount devices, Kubernetes should call it. So that's a dependency on the spec. And David already has a PR out in the CSI spec to add mount device equivalent. There's a lot of feedback on it, so hopefully that merges, and when that merges, then we can proceed with this item. Then see if we can change Kubernetes to allow privilege flag to be true. I don't believe there's been any progress made on this. Is that true, Shilpa?
Again, yeah, I am not 100% sure on that.
Okay, and same thing for FS group?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll sync with Chakri on that when he is available. Update spec dependency is complete. Nick Wren is on top of his PRs. For the CSI spec changes, there's a PR out for the credentials and mount devices. We're waiting for topology and probe. And allow volume drivers to implement the controller if not necessary. That also needs to go out. I need to get a PR out for that. Changes in the CSI repo, unit testing framework, validation for CSI. Luis, any updates on this?
There have not this week, but I will also work on that next week. That'll be my two things to work on.
Okay. Automated build system is green. Do you want to talk about this, Luis?
Yeah, the Travis is there for all the repos, but the thing is that the repos need more unit tests. The external attacher has unit tests, so that one's done. But the external provisioner and the drivers one. Actually, if you go to drivers, you'll see that I haven't even. I don't think I even merged that PR because there is a bunch of unit test errors if you click on details.
Ouch.
So yeah, yeah, exactly. So maybe I can just merge it and then people can just fix them. So maybe I'm, But anyway, what I meant to say is that the provisioner has 0 unit tests and the drivers is banned.
Okay. So in progress. Should we add separate items to get those fixed, or just bundle it under the same?
I think however you want to do it is fine with me.
You could create a new bug for getting these things fixed and track them as bugs at the top of the document.
Okay. I will do that.
Cool. Test for external sidecar containers. Unit test needed for sidecar containers.
I mean, that's what the drivers one is.
Okay. So I guess
that's what the discussion is, I guess.
Yeah.
So
okay, so that needs to be done. External components should probe prior to storage ops. I don't believe there's any update here. Automated build system for drivers. I guess that's already done with the same Travis work, or?
No, that needs to be done too. That's just like when you say make at the top, it builds all of them. That's really simple.
Okay.
So.
Cool. CSI drivers should not depend on Kubernetes. I don't believe there's any update there. We removed the end-to-end test for CSI drivers. Docs to write on how to write new drivers in progress, visiting CSI doc on Kubernetes IO. One thing I noticed here I added was on the current page, there is a section called out of tree volume plugins, and today it only talks about Flex. So we should fix that and throw CSI in there.
Awesome.
And maybe like a quick which one is better and why you should use which one and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So we'll leave that. Update spec dependency is done. And then new CSI drivers. David's already working on the GCE one. We can call this yellow. And then Ceph RBD, Sergey is working on at the moment.
Actually, it's done. So the first version was published on the Ceph, and then Hwamin is working on some improvements, but in general, it's working.
Awesome. That is wonderful.
What Kubernetes do you use to test it?
1.9.
No, and I mean, like, do you use OpenShift? Do you deploy a cluster?
No, I just manually deploy with the kubeadm 1.90, or actually 1.91, and works fine.
Cool.
Also,
it would be nice to have like a better README.
Oh yeah, definitely, it's on to-do list. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll go ahead and mark that green for now, and then looks like there will be some minor bug fixes and improvements in documentation, but otherwise that looks like it's complete. AWS remains unassigned. If you guys have contacts at Amazon, feel free to poke them and see if they're interested in working on this and finding a permanent home for it.
I'll ask around,
Okay.
and if we can't find it, I'll see if there's any interest to do it in-house.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Cool. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. And then the other thing, did you capture in the note where you mentioned that there might be breaking changes, or are you going to wait?
I added it under here for improved CSI version handling.
Okay.
But as I learn more, I'll bring it back to this meeting and we can discuss it more at length.
Okay, thanks.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
just one thing,
yes,
quick
please.
thing. Vladimir brought up something yesterday to me, was we need a tutorial and documentation. So I actually put 2 bugs in the documentation repo so that I can go ahead and fix those. And lastly is that I finally fixed the documentation URL so that we have a generic URL that points the person to the documentation of the projects.
Nice.
So
do you want to paste that into the doc?
yeah, we don't have it up there. Absolutely.
Cool. All right, thanks a lot. That is great, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday, and then Luis will lead the meeting on Monday.
Okay.
All right, guys, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.